This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. Another 6 people dead, and yet again, the drivers involved in these accidents flee the scenes. Bird flu tragically takes a young girl's life. And have you ever been molested by monkeys? Well, there is now a helpline for you to call. But firstly, it's our headline story. And this week, there has been a slew of traffic deaths and of fleeing drivers. The worst of these incidents was in Phra Sihanouk province, and it left 5 people dead and 2 others very seriously injured. The fatal collision occurred on National Road number 4, and it involved a Toyota Highlander driven by a Mr. Suk Eng, and with him was 6 passengers. Now, what Mr. Suk Eng did that day was something totally not unusual. Now, I say that as I travel over 25,000 kilometers a year, and I see this exact same maneuver over and over and over again. Because what the driver did was pull out to pass a slower vehicle, and he completely failed to leave enough distance to safely overtake. He swung his car into oncoming traffic. He desperately tried to accelerate his way out of trouble, but he ploughed headfirst into a container truck at high speed. Now, Mr. Suk Eng was 100% to blame for this accident, it seems. But oddly, it was the driver of the container truck that got out of his lorry and then fled the scene. He still remains unidentified, and the police are hunting for him. In another case of deadly hit and run this week, we have yet another car ploughing into a motto at speed on the streets of Phnom Penh and killing the driver of the motto. And then the car driving off at high speed to get away from the crimes and the responsibilities he left behind. You may remember, it was only 2 weeks ago I reported the exact same scenario, when a teenage boy on his way home in the capital was murdered by a driver who also fled the scene. Well, on this occasion, a Toyota Prius driven at speed hit a motto with such force, it killed the motto driver instantly. The dead man was just 28 years old, and his bloody body was left on the tarmac like so much garbage. And yet again, the car driver did the traditional, and instead of attempting to save his victim's life, he thought not of the other man, but only of himself. And he fled into the night. Police are still hunting for the killer of this most recent incident. And as of recording this show, there have been no arrests. On this week's crime desk, a man who should have known an awful lot better fires a handgun in a restaurant, illegal hooch kills at lightning speed, and have you ever been molested by a monkey? Well, now there's a helpline just for you. Now then, our first case this week starts with a question. How would you celebrate your birthday? Maybe a few drinks, then out to a nice restaurant for a meal with friends would be what is called for to celebrate the festive occasion. And that would be a fine choice indeed. And it is, in fact, the very choice one man made this week when his birthday rolled round. He got some friends together, and they headed off to a lovely little restaurant in Ko Kong province. The birthday boy himself had a few drinks to celebrate. Then he had a few more. And then it seems even more. And suddenly, for some reason, he thought the next best course of action was to pull out a handgun and wildly fire it into the air inside the restaurant. Now, the problem with this is it's not only unbelievably dangerous and illegal to fire off a handgun in a public place, but also it is not the behaviour expected from a deputy inspector of the police force. Yes, indeed, the man was a senior police officer. Panic spread through the restaurant, and immediately urgent phone calls were made to much more sober police officers to come and help subdue the man with the gun. When questioned, the drunk deputy inspector could only say that he was indeed drunk and he had lost consciousness, and it was his birthday. As of yet, the investigation is still ongoing and no charges have been brought. Now, we carry on with the theme of celebrating, but this time, instead of a drunk man putting lives into danger with a handgun, it was the drink itself that was to kill 3 men. The 3 men were celebrating and they had purchased some illicit booze from a local vendor. And it was that very booze that killed the 3 men stone dead. And it put another 3 into hospital with life-threatening poisoning. The incident itself took place in Takao province, and whatever was in that booze that killed those men, it did so at lightning speed. A 40-year-old male died at 10 p.m. the very same night. Only hours after, the next victim was a male aged 38. He died at 6:30 a.m. the next morning. Then it was a 51-year-old male who died at 9:30 a.m., again the very same morning. They had all complained of nausea and, rather frighteningly, an inability to breathe. Now, whatever was in that booze must have been unbelievably toxic and was obviously prepared by somebody who took a very reckless view of what chemicals they used when mixing illicit moonshine. Authorities investigated, and it was not long before they detained a Mrs. Nan and her 24-year-old son. And it was not just the 3 dead men that had fallen victim, as the other 3 men are still very seriously ill in hospital and currently under the watchful eye of doctors. Now, a couple of more light-hearted stories that made the news this week. I want you to have a look at this picture and tell me what mistake did this man make. I will and ah and pad with a few utterly superfluous words that achieve absolutely nothing whilst you study the picture to find the incriminating element that denotes this man is more than a little bit idiotic. Any ideas what his mistake was? Well, if you're looking at the balding chap and his weed bong and decided it was the bong that was the problem, then you are incorrect. As what is actually wrong is the word video in the top left corner and the thumbs up in the bottom left corner. Yes, we are back in one of our favourite stomping grounds, and that is people proving to the world that they are idiots using the medium of Facebook. The Phnom Penh man, for some reason, thought it would be rather a good idea if he posted a video of himself using illegal drugs on social media. And to the surprise of absolutely nobody, this video was a siren call that soon had the anti-drug squad officers knocking on his front door. Police named the man as a 41-year-old Mr. Osinon. And when dear old Osinon was hauled in by the drug squad officers, they also took with them 2 pipes, 1 water bottle, 1 pair of scissors, 2 mobile phones, and a towel. The suspect is currently being held in custody at the anti-drug department, waiting for his case to be processed. And finally this week for our crime desk, a really short one, but I felt compelled to include it. And I would like to state very clearly, I am quoting this story. The Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry has this week released 2 hotline numbers for the public if they have been molested by monkeys. Yes, a monkey hotline has been set up if anyone is molested or threatened by any wayward monkeys. Now then, this is more serious than I am giving it credit for, as in some towns in India, people are quite literally under siege from extremely violent monkeys that are unbelievably vicious. So here in the kingdom, authorities are looking to get ahead of the game before the savage simian gangs take hold. And that, trust me, is a very good idea. So if you have a monkey problem, you can call 0857 80 847 or 010 55 66 30. And the Forestry Administration will remove any dangerous monkeys from any public areas. The monkeys will then be spanked and released into the wild, where they can no longer be of danger to the general public. And we finish this week's news broadcast on a much sadder note. For this week, a 15-year-old girl has died of bird flu. Now, all this young girl did to get her death sentence was touch a dead chicken that had H5N1 virus. The young girl from Prey Veng province has become yet another victim of this virus, which is unbelievably deadly. She became ill soon after contact with the dead poultry, and she developed a high fever and a cough. And it was not long before she had very serious problems breathing. Despite hospitalization and intensive medical treatment, it was all to vain, because it was not long before she died. It was only 5 days prior, in fact, that she had handled the dead bird. And yet again, the death of this child was 100% completely and utterly avoidable, as what led to her contracting the deadly virus was people ignoring the barrage of warnings issued time and time again from the health ministry, saying, dispose of any dead poultry. But alas, the dead girl's relatives ignored all the warnings. Her relatives had had numerous chickens mysteriously die at their farm, but rather than dispose of these birds, they gave them to other family members. The families themselves decided to eat them, and when taken to the house, all that young girl did was touch a chicken. That was it. She literally just touched it, which shows you how very deadly this bird flu is, especially amongst the young and the elderly. So again, another needless death has been recorded. And again, this death is followed by the health ministry telling people yet again, if there is any mysterious poultry deaths, do not eat the dead animals, but dispose of any dead birds with extreme care. After all, it may just save a life. It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week. And here we are at the final hurdle, which is the weather. I don't know what sort of week you had, but seeing as we're at the weather,
where's the rain? There's people are seriously concerned of there being droughts. I myself, I took advantage of the clear weather and I went off into Thailand on one of my motorcycles and I went looking for temples. And I'm going to show you one. Because have a look at this. It's a tiny little temple that I drove past 4 times. It's on my map and everything, and it was just submersed in this big square of water by the side of the road. And I think it looks terribly pretty, and that's why I'm showing it to you, because I think it's sweet. They're not all grandiose, and many of them I see I don't make films of, but that one, I don't know. I'm showing it to you because it warms my heart for some reason. And warm is the key word, as I say, but have a look. There is rain across the board on the chart, but where it lands is kind of a mystery at the moment. You do get patches here and there, but the Met Office of Cambodia is saying that the rain will increase, which will only lead the farmers to much more relief. And the final note is that temperature is still high. It will get as high as 35 degrees.
This has been the Khmer Times News. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next weekend for your weekly Roundup.